Back in the late 60s and the early 70s, the letters ROTC were dirty initials on most college campuses. That was the Vietnam area, of course. There was Kent State, there were student demonstrations against the military, and ROTC was a foreign matter to most college students. And things weren't that much different on Siena College's campus. But now, just a few years later, things are different at Siena. The college now has one of the most successful ROTC programs in this part of the country.
10 or 12 years ago, this would have been a very common sight on the Siena College campus. Once a week, the entire student body was decked out in ROTC uniform. Just about every Siena student had to take ROTC, had to learn how to march and take apart an M1 rifle, had to take part in weekend parades, had to keep his hair short. But today, these are the only ROTC uniforms you're likely to see at Siena. The color guard just before a basketball game. Because this is what ROTC is like at Siena today. It's voluntary, and they've eliminated a lot of the so-called Mickey Mouse regulations.
The thinkers in the program decided none of this was really necessary, and that to teach the college graduate, the potential college graduate, what would be necessary for them to become future officers could be done in a relatively short period of time, and the need for a uniform and all this excess and excessive drilling that was going on was totally unnecessary. So the whole program was turned around and developed into what it is today, which is a very relaxed, informal training program, an education program in the first 2 years, with the explicit understanding that as they move into the junior year, that they will begin the formal military training to prepare themselves for the commission.
Some changes had to be made here at ROTC. 5 years ago, Siena commissioned only 5 officers. It was hardly worth the expense and trouble for the staff. Since the elimination of uniforms and other changes, the picture has changed dramatically.
We have commissioned in excess of 40 students for the last 2 years. We'll commission about 45 next year, and the year after, we hope to commission 80. Which will put us in a very unique position. A few schools will be able to match that record in the entire nation. Right now, we're number 1 in the Northeast. Among all the civilian schools, we're one of the top 5 producers in the entire East Coast.
Yeah. I wore my uniform once this year, for a ceremony.
Allison Jameson is perhaps symbolic of the changes here. Yeah. Well, she is, of course, a woman. She's a senior at Union College who travels to Siena to take advantage of ROTC. She's also number 2 in the cadet command at Siena.
I like the opportunity to travel, especially to travel overseas. I like doing something just a little different from my other college classmates. At Union College, very few people are involved in ROTC. And I like the provisions the Army makes when you're transferred someplace. There are people there waiting for you to welcome you into the community and make you feel at home. And I don't think that's as true with the civilian job.
You wouldn't know it just by looking, but this man is an Army captain. The instructors rarely wear uniforms anymore.
Isolate them in the rest of the world. Syria has just launched a nuclear attack against Saudi Arabia.
He's teaching a class in international affairs, with the students taking the parts of all the nations involved in the Middle East conflict. And that's another thing about the ROTC here. The changes have not merely been cosmetic. Instead of spending their time marching, the ROTC students here take meaningful courses. For instance, management courses taught by the college's business division. A strong emphasis on community involvement. Nearly 300 men and women are now taking ROTC.
6-7 years ago, you couldn't have sold ROTC to 99% of the students on campuses across the nation. Kent State, the whole deal. Why are young people turning to ROTC today?
Well, I think the profile of the Army has changed. It's more career-oriented and more personal. Also, we don't have the stigma of the Vietnam conflict, which was around then. I think that was very big in that back then.
The first 2 years of the course are entirely voluntary. And in the junior year, those who choose sign a contract to serve 4 years in the Army. They get paid $100 a month for the rest of their college careers.
I think it's excellent as far as personality development goes, as far as leadership development goes. It gives a person a chance to experience a third dimension, more or less, of college life that usually they don't get. They're in with a group of people who are highly motivated, who want to get some kind of leadership development, and are more or less the leaders on campus.
Well, 5 out of 6 members of the Student Senate, the governing body of the students here on campus, are in fact members of ROTC right now. They will be graduating seniors. And the remaining members of the Student Senate either have been in ROTC or are still active in the program. And there are many other activities such as the Little Theater, the newspaper, the Siena Rugby Club. The president of it is an ROTC student. The Campus Center. So many of these, virtually all of the programs on campus that have leadership positions in them have ROTC students in them.
Almost to a man and almost to a woman, the cadets here say they would not be in ROTC if things were the same as 5 or 6 years ago at Siena.
No, I wouldn't. I came to college, it's 4 years of my life, and I value that experience as a regular college student, and I wouldn't come here as an ROTC student in that capacity. I'd want to live these 4 years just like anybody else here and enjoy myself just as much as they would.
The people who run the program here say they know their new approach is working because their students go to summer camp in their junior years for intensive military training. And every year they perform just as well, often better than their colleagues from schools that still retain the traditional program. But the changes here must have old Army veterans shaking their heads and wondering if this is any way to run an Army.
You sound like me a year and a half ago. I came here fully expecting to see a traditional ROTC program, looked at it, thought about it, and realized that much of the training that I had had as an ROTC student was totally wasted. And I'm convinced we're on the right track. They started right, and I love it, and I think we're on the right program.
You know, as Colonel Massellin pointed out to us, they had been spending several years teaching college kids the same things they were teaching basic recruits in just 8 weeks. And we'll be back with more of 30 Minutes after this.